All right, let's dive into some pretty deep stuff today.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to be looking at the book of Job,
Okay.
but through the lens of this sermon that I found called Suffering and Grace, the Wisdom of the Cross.
Interesting.
And the sermon kind of starts out with this bold claim that the book of Job only makes sense when you see it in light of Jesus and his crucifixion. And I'm thinking, how does that even work?
Yeah.
Job lived way before Jesus.
Right.
So I'm curious how they're going to connect these dots.
Yeah, it's a good question.
So what do you think is the main thing the sermon's trying to get at here?
Well, it seems to be saying that we need to look at Job's suffering and his whole journey and see it as a kind of foreshadowing of what Jesus would go through later.
Okay, so like a sneak peek at the story of Jesus, but in the Old Testament?
Yeah, exactly.
And by understanding Job in this new way, it's like we get a whole new perspective on suffering in general.
Right. Like it's not just about Job's personal struggles, but about how we understand suffering in our own lives too.
So how does that work?
Well, the sermon keeps talking about this contrast between worldly wisdom and the wisdom of the cross.
Okay, I remember that phrase.
It's like our natural human instinct is to try and explain suffering, to make sense of it, to find a reason for it.
Like we want to put it in a neat little box and tie it up with a bow.
Exactly.
But the sermon's saying that the cross kind of explodes that whole way of thinking. It's like the wisdom of the world wants logic and reason, but the wisdom of the cross is all about faith and surrender, like accepting that sometimes there are no easy answers, and that's okay.
Yeah, and there's this quote from the sermon that really stuck with me. It compares Job to what Paul says in 1 Corinthians about the cross being foolishness to those who don't believe, but the power of God to those who are being saved.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
So it's like the world sees suffering as something to be avoided or explained away, but the cross shows us that suffering can actually be a source of power and redemption.
So how does that tie back into Job's story?
Well, think about Job's incredible faithfulness, even when he's going through unimaginable suffering.
He loses everything, right?
Everything. His family, his wealth, his health, everything.
And yet he still trusts God.
Exactly.
So that's kind of like Jesus, how he was obedient, even though it led to his death on the cross.
Right.
And then there's the resurrection, like the ultimate victory over suffering.
Yeah, and the sermon kind of hints that Job's eventual restoration, how he gets his blessings back and is healed, it's like a foreshadowing of that resurrection victory, but played out on a human level.
Okay, that's starting to make more sense.
Good.
Now, there's this other part of the sermon that really made me think, the part about armchair questions versus wheelchair questions.
Oh, yeah, that's a powerful distinction.
It's like when we're sitting comfortably in our armchairs, we can ask all sorts of theoretical questions about suffering, like why does God allow it, or what's the purpose of pain?
Right. It's kind of like an intellectual exercise, debating the theology of suffering from a safe distance. But when you're the one in the wheelchair, when you're the one actually experiencing the pain, those questions become a lot more raw and urgent.
Like you're not interested in abstract theories anymore. You just kind of know why this is happening to you.
Yeah, and the sermon tells that story about the pastor who thinks he's going to have these deep theological discussions with 4 ministers, but then he realizes they're all coming to him because they've experienced profound loss and pain in their own lives.
Like they're all asking those wheelchair questions.
Exactly.
And it made me realize how easy it is to offer advice or explanations from our armchair perspective without really understanding the depth of someone's pain.
It's like we're trying to fix a broken leg with a Band-Aid.
Yeah, exactly.
True empathy means recognizing when someone is asking those wheelchair questions and responding with compassion, not just logic.
Have you ever found yourself asking those kinds of raw, gut-wrenching questions born out of your own pain?
Yeah, I think most of us have at some point.
Yeah, no, I have.
It's a human experience, isn't it?
It is.
To face suffering and to wonder why.
And the sermon's point is that we need to be sensitive to that, to recognize when someone is in that place and not just try to offer easy answers.
Right.
Because sometimes there are no easy answers.
Right.
And that brings us to another point this sermon makes, which is about Job's radical honesty. Like, he doesn't hold anything back.
No, he doesn't.
Do you remember that paraphrase of Job 21 that the sermon included?
Yeah, I do.
It's like Job is laying it all out there. His anger, his confusion, his sense of unfairness.
He's not sugarcoating anything.
Yeah.
He's not trying to pretend that everything's okay when it's not.
And that's so important, right?
It is.
Because by being honest about our pain, we're acknowledging the depth of the struggle.
And that's where true healing could begin.
But the sermon also points out that this process of healing, of wrestling with suffering and finding meaning in it, it doesn't happen overnight.
It takes time
It does.
and patience
Yeah.
and a willingness to sit with the discomfort.
It's like the sermon's saying that just like learning a new language, processing suffering takes time and dedication.
Right. There are no shortcuts to genuine understanding. And, one thing that keeps coming up for me is this idea that we shouldn't just try to explain away someone's suffering.
Right, like offering those armchair solutions we talked about earlier.
Exactly.
Like, oh, you're going through this because ... fill in the blank.
Yeah. And the sermon talks about how Job's friends did the same thing, trying to find a reason for his pain instead of just being there for him.
Yeah, I remember that part.
And it's something we all do, even with good intentions.
It's so easy to fall into that trap.
It is.
But how do we avoid it?
Well, the sermon uses this phrase that I really like. It says we need to accompany Job through his entire journey.
Accompany him.
Like walk alongside him in his pain, even when it's messy and uncomfortable.
And not try to fix it or clean it up.
Exactly.
Just be present with him in it.
It's about offering a listening ear, a compassionate heart, and a willingness to just be there without judgment.
I think that's so hard for us to do sometimes.
It is. We want to have answers. We want to make things better.
But sometimes the best thing we can do is just shut up and listen.
And be present.
Be present.
Yeah.
And that brings us back to this idea that processing suffering takes time.
Right.
It's not a quick fix.
The sermon really emphasizes that the length of the book of Job, it's like we're forced to slow down and sit with the discomfort.
It's like learning a new language. It takes time, dedication, and a willingness to struggle.
And that's a challenge in our culture of instant gratification.
We want everything now.
We want the quick and easy solution.
But suffering doesn't work that way.
It doesn't.
It takes time to heal, to process, to make sense of it all.
And sometimes, even after all that, we still don't have all the answers.
Right. And the sermon seems to be suggesting that maybe our obsession with why is actually getting in the way.
Like, we're so focused on finding an explanation for our pain that we miss the deeper truth.
Which is
that God is present in our suffering.
Even when we don't understand why it's happening.
Exactly.
So instead of fixating on why, maybe we should be asking who.
Who is with me in this?
Who is offering comfort and strength.
Who can I turn to for help?
And that brings us back to this idea of grace.
Yeah, grace.
It's not about finding a reason for our pain, but about discovering God's presence within it.
Like, sometimes God's grace doesn't look like a rescue mission or a problem solved.
It's more like a whisper of comfort in the storm.
Or a gentle hand guiding us through the darkness.
But what about those times when the darkness feels overwhelming?
Yeah, the sermon doesn't shy away from those tough questions.
Especially when it comes to innocent suffering.
The Holocaust, natural disasters, child abuse.
The kind of suffering that makes you want to scream at God and say, "Where are you?"
Those are the wheelchair questions that shake us to our core.
The ones that challenge everything we thought we knew about God.
And the sermon doesn't offer easy answers.
Because honestly, there aren't any.
Right.
So what are we left with?
Well, the sermon seems to be saying that wrestling with these questions, even when they're painful, is part of the journey of faith.
It's like, in those moments of doubt and uncertainty, we're actually more open to experiencing God's grace in a new way.
It's counterintuitive, but it's like those painful questions can actually draw us closer to God.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and it makes me think about this idea of seeing through suffering.
Like, how do we actually do that?
How do we move from questioning and doubt to a place of trust and hope? Well, the sermon points to that moment when God finally speaks to Job.
Oh, yeah, from the Whirlwind.
It's a powerful scene.
It is.
And God doesn't really answer Job's questions directly.
He doesn't give him a point-by-point explanation for his suffering.
No, instead he reveals his majesty and power. He reminds Job of the vastness and mystery of creation.
So it's not about getting all the answers.
It's about encountering God.
The God who is bigger than our pain, bigger than our questions.
It's about surrendering our need for control and embracing the mystery of his love.
And that's where the wisdom of the cross comes in.
Right. It's about letting go of our need for neat and tidy explanations.
And choosing to trust that even when we don't understand, God is still in control.
And his purposes are good.
This is really making me think about how I approach suffering.
E2.
It's like, maybe we're missing the grace that's woven through our pain because we're so focused on finding a reason for it.
That's a good point.
So much to unpack here.
Yeah, definitely.
Ready to move on to the final part of this deep dive?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right, back for the final part of our deep dive. And wow, this whole conversation about Job has really got me thinking.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
It's amazing how relevant it still is,
Yeah, totally. Like those ancient words are speaking right into our struggles today.
For sure. And one thing that really stood out to me was this idea of not just enduring suffering, but like finding meaning in it.
Yeah. Yeah. The sermon kept saying, seeing through the suffering.
Right, like there's something deeper going on beneath the surface.
Okay, but how do we actually do that?
Well, the sermon points to Christ's crucifixion and resurrection.
Hmm.
It's like when we view our suffering through that lens, it can actually become a source of transformation.
So you're saying something that's painful can actually make us better?
In a way, yeah, think about the cross. It's the ultimate symbol of suffering, but also of hope and redemption.
Okay, so our suffering can be a pathway to growth.
Exactly. It's not about enjoying pain or pretending it's not there, but seeing God's grace working through it.
Okay, that makes sense. And I love that image of a tapestry, woven from broken threads.
Yeah, it's powerful.
Like, even when we don't see the whole picture, God is creating something beautiful.
And the sermon challenges us to trust that process even when it hurts.
But how do we apply this to our own lives?
It starts with honesty. Like Job was radically honest about his pain, and we need to be too.
So acknowledge the pain, and then what?
Then shift your focus from why me to who.
Who is with me in this?
Exactly. Who can I turn to? Who can help me make sense of this?
So seek God in the midst of the pain.
And ask him to reveal himself in new ways.
It's like shifting from the problem to the person.
Yes, from the pain to the healer.
Wow. This has been so insightful.
It really has.
So what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from this whole conversation?
You are not alone in your suffering. God is with you, even when you can't see him.
That's so powerful and comforting.
And your suffering can be redeemed, transformed, even used for good.
Wow. I love that. And I really hope this encourages our listeners to check out the book of Job for themselves.
Me too. There's so much wisdom there.
Well, I think that about wraps it up for this deep dive. It's been an honor to share these thoughts with you all.
Yes, thank you for listening.
And until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep believing.
Now that we have unpacked Book of Job a bit, we encourage you to reflect on how these truths can be applied to your life this week. For ongoing encouragement, follow Grace Gospel Church on social media GGEFDE on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and more. Subscribe for more deep dive conversations each week as we explore the messages from Grace Gospel Church. For more resources to grow in faith, visit www.gracegospel.church. We pray for your continued growth in faith.